Technology is really, really important to the solutions architect because they need to have like an in-depth understanding of what the product does, and they also not only need to know in consultation with the sort of the business product prime, what products to push to a particular customer and to sell to them, but they need to know, even how much margin will be sold. So in a given situation, you might have two products as a vendor that you want to put up on the front line, but one will give you more margin than the other, and perhaps it's, more specific to a given country. So you need to put that forward to the customer as the prime product to cater for their service requirements. And internally, the solutions architect works very closely with the plan of records people. These are the people in the company that look at the evolution of a product. So you have a product on the shelf that you put forward as a good product, but it just is not static. There are people behind the scenes trying to add functionality and add additional software releases to that product to make it viable in the market. And I can give you an example of a solution that Nortel had back in 1998. It was a 1 meg modem which allowed you to deliver 1 meg download capacity to the consumer, the residential consumer, and this was way ahead of ADSL, but because it wasn't tailored to the Australian market, it never made it off the shelf in Australia. But in Canada, Bell Canada has installed 1 meg modems throughout all of Canada, and today they enjoy 1 meg modems rather than ADSL modems. So that's a prime example. So the technology is quite varied. The solutions architect needs to have a grasp of, wireless technologies, wireline technologies, things like ATM, LMDS, 1xRTT, GPRS, a whole lot of, DWDM type of components, ISDN. They need to know the protocols and standards behind these technologies and really what they actually do and how they're different. So if someone comes to you and says, I want an e-business solution and I need to have some kind of network connectivity between well, what's the difference between an IP delivery or an ATM delivery? Do they sit on top of one another, and what layer is the IP versus the ATM, and do they speak the same language, and what are the conflicts, or what are the solution suites that you saw in tandem? So the solutions architect needs to have a good grasp of the product, how many shelves it requires, whether it requires a large rack, a small rack, a whole lot of internal configuration knowledge that the solutions advisor really just doesn't touch. And they need to know how to best optimally design a network so that it suits the requirements of the client. For example, is it cheaper to offer 2 large mobile switching centers and then the base station controllers and the base stations, or should you have smaller mobile switching centers that are distributed and save, for example, on costs in terms of backhaul? Now, in Australia, it's a very interesting fact. I mean, we have a very large country, and to cover these highly urbanized pockets, you need to be able to have good reach with your products. And it costs a lot of money in Australia to actually have, even a 2 megabit line for backhaul between, say, Sydney and Melbourne, or even Melbourne and Adelaide, or Adelaide and Perth. So your technology needs to cater for the needs of the market, as opposed to a country like Hong Kong or Singapore, which is very small, very dense, and you can sell very different products in those markets to the ones that you can sell in Australia. So geography, coming back to the link between the solutions advisor and the solutions architect, is really important. That's how these two individuals and job roles feed into one another.